Good afternoon. National Assembly of Wales is now in session. The first item this afternoon are questions to the First Minister. Question 1 is Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What discussions has the First Minister had with the UK Government regarding banking in Wales?
Well, we have regular discussions with the UK Government on a range of issues, including banking and financial matters. Our focus as a government has been to improve access to finance for business, despite continuing concerns about the provision of business finance at a UK level.
First Minister, many businesses in Llynwrtyd Wells and Crickhowell in my constituency are very alarmed at the prospects of closures of branches of banks in their towns. Barclays is intending on closing the last bank in Llynwrtyd Wells, and NatWest is to close its branch in Crickhowell, having an impact both on small local traders as well as those individuals perhaps who can't travel to branches further away. I have written to both the Secretary of State at Biz and Minister of State at the Treasury, yet have had no response. Could you impress upon them that they should be doing all they can to ensure banks follow the code that was designed under the last Westminster government to try and protect communities from such closures, and that it is really important that banks, especially those that were bailed out by the public, should see that they have a continuing role to support local communities?
Well, I mean, that makes a very important point, and that is that banks received assistance from the public through their pockets when they were in trouble. They could look to try and repay some of that assistance that they were given. I'm aware of where the Barclays Bank is in Llanwrtyd. It's a hugely important part of the business community there. I understand there are discussions to keep an ATM machine there, but it's not a bank branch at the end of the day. And I know of the similar concerns that exist in Crickhowell. She has written to the UK Government, whose responsibility it is, such as it is, for ensuring that banks keep a network of branches. And I will join with her in her view, that is correct, that the code of practice should be adhered to at all times when branch closures are being considered.
David Rees.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, last week the cases of Kashif Shabir and Alan Richards were raised by, in the UK Government in a Westminster Hall debate by parliamentary colleagues. Both were victims of, at best, bad banking practices. But they're not alone in Wales. Others have actually suffered the same difficulties and have seen businesses destroyed by such practices. This clearly impacts upon local economies, employment, and the opportunities for growth in small businesses here in Wales. Will the Welsh Government raise these cases to the UK Government and to ensure that such bad banking practices are actually looked into, and perhaps look at compensation for victims of these practices?
Well, I wonder if the member could write to me with further detail with regard to the individuals involved, and I will then, of course, look to press the matter with the UK Government on his behalf.
Nick Ramsey.
Diolch. First Minister, you'll be aware that Professor Dylan Jones-Evans has recommended the establishment of a development bank following his assertion that Finance Wales is not fit for purpose, and I'm sure you'll be aware of Welsh Conservative proposals for Invest Wales. Do you agree with me, First Minister, whatever form business support finally takes in Wales, do you agree that we must put the failings of Finance Wales firmly behind us and ensure that future support for businesses is firmly anchored locally, and that businesses know that support exists and that they can access it easily?
I have no idea what the member means by that. I don't agree with what he says about Finance Wales, although he's right to say that the issue of a development bank is being considered, and the Minister will make further announcements on the progress with that admittedly complex area of work shortly.
Alan Fred-Jones.
Thank you very much. If I could return to the original question, and I'm very supportive of what Kirsty Williams had to say. Unfortunately, our experience in Arfon was that banks were closed during the period of the last government, and they have no interest now in those communities or those towns, because the high street banks, to all intents and purposes, have disappeared from villages, towns across Wales. But that means that there is greater pressure on us to actually enhance the credit union sector. Now, the government here in Wales has been funding a campaign to promote these credit unions, but that support has now come to an end. Can you give us an assurance that the government will recommence a marketing campaign for the benefit of communities and families across Wales, particularly in rural and more disadvantaged areas?
Well, credit unions do have a very important role throughout the whole of Wales and in those areas where they've lost banks over the years. We have committed £1.9 million to support credit unions, and that builds on the good work that has been done in the past. And of course, it ensures that credit unions are able to support those people who can't access funds or loans throughout the whole of the country, and we hope to collaborate with them in the long term to ensure that the services that they have can be expanded.
Jocelyn Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What action is the Welsh Government taking to improve the overall well-being of children in Wales?
Well, we're continuing to focus investment on supporting children and families with a range of programmes and initiatives across government departments. Our aim, of course, is for every child in Wales to have the best possible start in life and a healthy and bright future.
Thank you, First Minister. Well, new evidence published today by the Read On, Get On campaign shows that children from disadvantaged backgrounds in Wales are twice as likely as better off children to experience difficulties in language development by the time they start school, and are less likely to be able to make up that lost ground as they grow older. So will you affirm the importance of supporting all children, particularly those living in poverty, to learn to read and to commit the Welsh Government to signing up to the Read On, Get On campaign?
Yes, I mean, I'm sure the member, as other members, will have had the experience of going to some schools where children are not able to speak when they arrive. And that inevitably is an enormous disadvantage that has to be overcome within school. We have, of course, Flying Start, which reaches around a quarter of children across Wales. And we're committed, of course, to ensuring language development at the earliest possible opportunity. It's important, of course, that support continues through school age, which is why, of course, we have schemes such as Schools Challenge Cymru, which is why Flying Start, of course, was doubled in the lifetime of this government. The member is right to point out that it's crucial, and we would say through the investments that we have made, to make sure that children get the best start, and where they arrive in school, where they appear to be behind their peer group in terms of numeracy and literacy skills, that those problems are addressed as quickly as possible.
Angela Burns.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, in my constituency there are two excellent youth projects, Dr Ems in Carmarthen and the Tanyard in Pembroke. Both rely on volunteers as well as trained youth workers. Both support some of the most disadvantaged young people in our society. Both have high and successful rates of intervention for dealing with the emotional, behavioural and psychological problems experienced by these youngsters, and both take troubled youngsters off the street and into a caring environment during what might be seen as the early evening flashpoint. There is no other provision. However, Dr Ems is faced with closure as the council has withdrawn funding, and the Tanyard has seen council support dwindle to nothing. What do you think should happen to these kids, and where should the responsibility for their safety lie? With
the council. I mean, the members answered her own question. First of all, can I join with her in recognising the work done by these organisations? Of course, it is a matter for Pembrokeshire Council to explain why they feel they should withdraw funding for organisations that she has said, and I have no reason to doubt what she said, provide an excellent service for young people, but it is a matter for them to explain. We as a government will want to ensure that local authorities do support organisations that provide services for young people, especially, of course, providing facilities for young people to keep them out of trouble. I mean, at times when boredom can sometimes get the better of young people, but it is for the council to explain.
We now move to questions from the party leaders, and first this afternoon, Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Archie-Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, it was good news today for cardiac services at the UHW and Morriston hospitals, something that we can all celebrate and ultimately actually look at the exemplary work that's going on, particularly at University Hospital Wales, where that unit in particular now is in the top 3 across the whole of the UK. The lead consultant there said that there were some serious issues, though, around wait times. Would you endorse her comments around the wait that people are having to stay on the lists to go into that cardiac unit? Because ultimately that's where the real problem is. It's not in the care that they receive in the unit, it's the wait time that they have.
Well, it's a very good unit. It has been recognised today. What the consultant said is that there's still room for improvement, and which is true. We accept that, but very much welcome the endorsement of that unit that has been made. Bear in mind, of course, the investment that's being made as well in the Morriston cardiac care unit, and, of course, the money that is being invested in reducing waiting times in Wales. I mean, that compares, of course, to the situation where Addenbrooke's, very well-known hospital, has now just gone into special measures, which is of concern to all people, I'm sure, but it does show that we in Wales provide excellent cardiac care services, as the Leader of the Opposition has recognised.
As I said, that was a real good news story today, but sadly it doesn't hide the story that obviously a previous report identified 150 premature deaths because of the waiting times that people have to endure before they can have that brilliant surgery and care that is provided by the team at UHW and Morriston hospitals. But the lead cardiologist there was pointing out specifically about waiting times, and week after week we are seeing the government's own waiting times missed and a substantial increase in people waiting on those lists. Now, you said in the early part of this assembly that your government was going to be about delivery. We've seen today that cardiologists in Cardiff and Morrison have an exemplary record when compared internationally and nationally across the UK. So when is your government going to actually start hitting its own targets, whether they be A&E, whether they be urgent cancer times, or whether they be just the general referral times that have got 450,000 people now waiting on those waiting times? Will any of those lists start to come down by the end of this assembly term?
Question, and we are targeting the referral to treatment time figures and diagnostics, and we have seen the movement in the right direction in that time. We can't ignore the fact that our budget's been cut by 10%, and it has been a struggle to make sure that funding is at the level we would expect. Nevertheless, funding for health and social services in Wales is 8% per head higher than is the case in England. I noticed a few weeks ago, for example, the Daily Mail, which is no friend of the Welsh Government, I'm sure they would accept that as a fair judgment, was illustrating the story of somebody who wanted to move to Wales for cancer treatment because it wasn't available in England. And so we have seen that some challenging times in the Welsh Health Service, that much is true, but the service is moving very much in the right direction, and the fact we have such an excellent cardiac care unit, not just at UHW, but in other hospitals in Wales as well, like Morriston, shows that that service is continuing to improve.
At the start of your answer, First Minister, you said that those wait times would undoubtedly be coming down by the end of this assembly. So I'm going to hold you to that, and I'm sure many people on those waiting times will want to see that reduction happening. Where, given that the referral times now stand at some 442,000 people on a waiting list, do you think that those waiting times will be at the end of this assembly term? You've got 6 months to do it. I commend you for coming forward and saying that you were going to reduce, because I put 3 direct questions to you: A&E, urgent cancer referral times, and the referral times more generally coming down. Where do you see the 440,000 number being at the end of this assembly term, which is March of next year?
Well, first of all, the figure that he refers to includes people who have just been referred by the GP. So it's not as if people are waiting for treatment having been seen by a consultant necessarily. Secondly, I don't want to see the figures improve between now and March. I want to see the figures improve beyond March. It's not about an election in May. It's about providing a service for people from March and May of next year and beyond. And it has been difficult to ensure that the funding is there, given the huge budget cuts that we've received from the UK government. Nevertheless, we've done that. Waiting times are moving in the right direction. When it comes to cancer treatment, for example, we are ahead of England in terms of cancer treatment and its availability for people in Wales. We contrast that with the ending of the cancer drugs fund in England in March next year. I mean, the Leader of the Opposition has made great play of it, and you know, it's something he's raised many, many times in this chamber, and now we see that it's ending in March of next year, and this is something that he has advocated within this chamber, and his own party is ending it. And it's important, of course, to ensure that people of Wales get the service that they wish to have. We believe that is happening. We believe that it will continue to improve in the future, and what we have seen at UHW is a sign of that.
We now move to the Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I note the statement released by your Housing Minister yesterday about the steps your government plans to take to promote house building in Wales. One glaring omission from that statement is any mention of a concrete figure of the number of new homes that we need here. What is your analysis? How many new homes do we need to build each year in Wales to meet Wales's housing need?
Well, we have a target, as the member will be aware, of 7,500, if I remember. I know 10,000, I'm reminded. I know that she has, I should know that, because I know that she has pledged to double that to 20,000. She will have to explain how that's to be paid for in terms of more affordable homes. I'm sure we share the same objective in terms of ensuring there are more homes available. We do notice that house building activity in Wales is increasing and increasing rapidly after some very difficult times. And of course we have ensured that each local authority is able to make an analysis of how many homes are needed in each local authority area.
First Minister, the last time there was a comprehensive report published by a government was in 2010, and it said that we needed over 9,000 private sector homes to be built, more for the homes available to rent in the social rented sector each year. I understand that your government is planning to review those figures. Could you commit to publishing those new numbers before the elections next year? What we do know is people in Wales now have to borrow nearly 4 times their income to be able to afford to buy a house. Now, my party have a rent-to-buy scheme which would allow people to make monthly payments equivalent to rent to build up a share in their home without requiring a deposit. Isn't that exactly the kind of policy that we need to help first-time buyers achieve their dreams of owning their own home at some point?
This sounds very much like Help to Buy and the scheme that we already have in place, a scheme that has helped many first-time buyers to get onto the housing ladder. There are many ways, of course, in which people can be helped to buy their own homes. Shared equity schemes, obviously, are an example of that. Community land trust schemes, where a trust owns the land and the individual owns the house, reduces the price then of the house because the land isn't within the ownership of the person. But through Help to Buy, we have seen a significant increase in the number of first-time buyers who are able to buy a home for the first time. You can see it advertised at different sites around Wales, and that is something as a government we have done to assist first-time buyers.
First Minister, some people will choose to, or indeed will never be in a position to buy their own home, and therefore it's absolutely essential we have enough homes for those people to rent. Now, last year we showed figures that there were thousands of people waiting years for homes via the social housing lists. Now, you challenged me as to how we would pay for our ambitious plans to double the number of such homes being built and therefore cutting the time people have to wait on those lists. Don't you agree with me that a better use of some of the money that you're planning to spend on your M4 relief road would be indeed to double the number of social houses available, putting a roof over people's head rather than a road that will be environmentally damaging?
Now, as she knows full well, we cannot use the money for that purpose. We have been told by the UK government, whether we agree with this or not, that the money will be made available up front for the M4 Relief Road and for no other purpose at the beginning. Now, if she is saying she doesn't think the relief road should be built, then that is something that she needs to make clear. I know there are different views on this. There are some who take the view that the M4 Relief Road shouldn't be built at all and the traffic should just build forever and a day. There are some who take the view there should be a different route. The member will know my view on that. But it's important, of course, that we have sufficient affordable houses. We are well on target to being able to do that. We've ensured the local authorities are able to access finance in order to be able to do that as well. And we believe that we will be on track to increase, again, the level of affordable housing that is available in Wales in the years to come.
We now move to Lead Reply Cymru, Leanne Wood.
Diolch, Llywyd. First Minister, people in Wales with suspected cancer are already waiting substantially longer than people elsewhere for crucial diagnostic tests such as endoscopy tests. Now, note here I'm asking you specifically about diagnosis and not treatment. New NICE guidelines, if they're adopted, will add additional pressures on diagnostics capacity because more people will be referred by GPs for diagnosis. Can you inform the Assembly of whether or not it's your intention to adopt the new NICE guidelines, please?
Well, first of all, it's something that we'll consider, of course. But let's remind ourselves, when it comes to treatment, we are ahead of England. Well, what is the point of focusing on diagnosis and not treatment? I don't understand that at all. We can tell you what the diagnosis says, but we're not going to have any targets. You've realised the weakness in your argument now, but you're not going to have any targets with regard to treatment. That's not good enough. We have to look at the whole pathway. We're saying to people with cancer, well, you can get a diagnosis within 28 days, and that's not easy, clinically, actually, for some cancers either. But actually, there's no target in terms of your treatment then what use is that for an individual? We take the view that people should have diagnosis and treatment within an appropriate time, and we are well ahead of England in terms of being able to achieve that.
First Minister, people can't be treated unless they've had a diagnosis, and that's where your government is falling down. Now, if you're unwilling to give us an answer as to whether or not you'll adopt the new NICE guidelines, perhaps you'll set out the government's position on the Independent Cancer Task Force recommendations. They recommend that by 2020, 95% of patients with suspected cancer will be referred to a GP, referred by a GP, should receive a diagnosis or an all clear within 28 days. Now, this has been adopted in England, and of course the benefits of early diagnosis are clear. Not only does it save money, but more crucially, it saves people's lives. So is it your intention to adopt these recommendations in Wales too?
Well, first of all, anybody would agree that the earliest possible diagnosis is important. But I have to say to the Leader of Plaid Cymru, not having a target in terms of treatment is pointless. I mean, why would you say to people, well, we have a target to be diagnosed within 28 days, and no one's going to disagree with that the early diagnosis is important, but then to say to people, actually, we have no thoughts as to what happens afterwards, how does that help people? It tells people what their diagnosis is, but you have no target for treatment.
You twisted my words, First Minister. That is not what we've said. I am here to hold you to account for your government's actions, and I am asking you about diagnostic waiting tests. Now, you have already conceded to my colleague Elin Jones that waiting times here are worse than elsewhere. You admitted to her in answer to a question in April where she asked you, why are Scotland and England succeeding to provide scans within 6 weeks for 95% of their patients, while Wales manages to provide MRI scans for only 56% of our patients within 6 weeks? And you answered, those figures are correct, of course. There is scope, therefore, to improve the situation. So you've already conceded that point. Now, you must accept that demand on diagnostic capacity will increase whether the new guidelines are adopted or not, because we have an ageing population. Now, Plaid Cymru has announced plans for 3 new diagnostic centres to complement existing diagnostic capacity within the NHS. These centres will help to meet existing demand, but crucially will aid in meeting new increased demand in the future. You have called our proposals fantasy politics, but you don't seem to have any solutions of your own apart from tinkering around the edges. Now, perhaps you can enlighten us this afternoon. What is your solution to the diagnostic waiting times crisis that people are facing in this country, First Minister?
Well, as with all things, it's down to money, and we are investing in bringing down the diagnostic waiting times for all, not just for cancer, but for all diseases, and that is something that we're seeing now month after month. She's right to point out that we needed to bring those waiting times down, and that is something that we are doing. Now, she mentioned her own policy of 3 diagnostic centres. Well, that's for her to argue in the course of the next few months. It would cost between 90 and 150 million pounds to set them up, with all the equipment that would be needed, and indeed the buildings. Now, that, in her mind, might be money that would be justifiable, but she'd have to explain how the system would actually work. But I come back to the point I made earlier on. She made the point, I want to ask you about cancer diagnosis, not treatment. I come back to the point that I made earlier on. You cannot simply say to people, you'll get a diagnosis within a certain time, but actually we can't give you a time within which you receive treatment. That makes no sense. Well, your own press releases, your own question this afternoon was about diagnosis. You said nothing about treatment times. You said nothing about treatment times. You have said that people can get a diagnosis in a certain amount of time. Well, clinically, it's not that easy for some people, because you can't diagnose cancer within 28 days necessarily. And secondly, you have abdicated your responsibility to say that people will get treatment within a particular time. You cannot have one without the other. We as a government have said we will make sure that people get appropriate treatment within appropriate time, within the 31-day target, within the 62-day target, and in that we are ahead of England. Our cancer treatment record in Wales is certainly better than anywhere else in the UK, and simply saying to people, we're going to tell you what's wrong with you, but we ain't going to treat you in time, is not good enough.
Right, we now move back to questions on the paper, and his question 3 is Russell George.
Will the First Minister make a statement on the recent report published by the Road Safety Foundation?
Yes, our road safety framework for Wales sets out the measures we're taking to improve road safety and reduce the number of people killed and seriously injured on Welsh roads.
First Minister, the report, which was published by the Road Safety Foundation, confirms that the A44 between Llangyrrig and Aberystwyth and the A458 between Welshpool and the A483 between Llandovery and Newtown are some of the most dangerous roads in Britain. In your response to me previously on this issue, you've denied that there is reliable data to support concerns regarding road safety in my constituency. Can I ask First Minister what you will do to act on this evidence provided by the Road Safety Foundation?
Well, let's look at the A44. There's already an approach being taken to improving safety on the A44. It's already beginning to have a positive impact. Motorcyclists are by far proportionately the major casualties on the road, as they are on roads across Wales. Training has been provided to motorcyclists and other high-risk road user groups to help awareness and behaviours. There has also been, I understand, the installation of new signing on the road, and the lining has been improved at local collision sites. So signage is important. I'm familiar with the road. You can't engineer a straight road on the A44, but what you can do and what is being done is to make sure that people are aware of the hazards, and they are aware of the collision sites, and that they take steps to ensure that their own safety is helped and that the possibility of an accident is minimised.
Mike Hedges.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I stress the importance of safe routes in the community and the importance of children travelling safely to school? The proposals for Trallwng and Talacopper schools in my constituency have been warmly welcomed by both parents and local residents. Will the First Minister commit to continuing such schemes, and are these the type of schemes that would be endangered by the Tory proposed cuts to the transport budget?
Well, yes, they would. It wouldn't happen. We know that the Tories want to cut the transport budget by 20%, plus we know they want to cut the education budget by 20% plus. And I'm delighted to see that the work that's being carried out at Trallwng and at Talacopper is part of the wider Llansamlet South scheme. And it shows that we are committed to ensuring that children are able to go to school safely through the use of safe routes to schools, through the use of 20-mile-per-hour zones, and unlike the party opposite, we won't jeopardise the funding for that.
Ellen Jones.
Prif Weinidog.
First Minister, the A44 has been one of those roads which is one of the most dangerous for a number of years now, and there have been some fatal, serious accidents on that road. You mentioned some of the changes of signage that have happened here and there, but again, this road isn't being prioritised for significant enhancement and significant investment to improve road safety and to improve the condition of this road in order to reduce the number of accidents that happen there.
Well, work is being undertaken at present, and assessments will continue as to finding out how we can improve the road, and this is true of any road in Wales, but of course some roads are even more dangerous. For example, Llandovery, we've mentioned that that was an extremely dangerous road until we actually widened the road there. And of course we must consider the A44 in order to ensure that there is a reduction in the number of accidents that occur.
Thank you. First Minister, evidence suggests that children and young people from poorer backgrounds are up to 5 times more likely to be seriously injured or even killed in road traffic accidents as their peers from more affluent backgrounds. What can the Welsh Government do to help tackle this appalling situation?
Yeah, well, the road safety framework for Wales recognises the increased risk of child pedestrians, or 2 child pedestrians, I should say, who are from socially deprived areas and their risk of injury in a road traffic collision. We do encourage local authorities to allocate greater resources to deprived communities if there are more casualties occurring in those areas. And road safety capital grant applications must include an assessment of how schemes will improve the quality of life for people in deprived communities.
Question 4, Bethan Jenkins.
Will the First Minister make a statement on how system failures in the Welsh NHS are dealt with by the Welsh Government?
Yes, we work continuously with all NHS bodies to monitor the quality, performance and safety of service in the NHS in Wales and to drive continuous improvement, and where problems are identified, we take decisive action.
Thank you for that answer, First Minister. I have a constituent whose daughter's files were lost. When I wrote to the University Hospital Wales to ask if if there was a server crash in 2007, the local health board replied no. Yet when I asked South Wales Police about the same server crash, they said that it had happened, but that it was in fact a standalone PC. The force said that it took no further action because it wasn't told that any other patient's files had been lost, but they didn't investigate it to understand whether there had been any other files lost or not. I want to understand, as a Welsh Government, whether you have a protocol for understanding if there is a server crash, if there is a standalone PC crash that you find out, because I was advised by South Wales Police to raise this with you because they simply do not have the time to look into wider issues like this. And I'm concerned that more people would have lost their files or lost their information and they do not simply know about it.
I think she and I are dealing with the same person, possibly. Anyway, she raises an important point. Perhaps if I could ask the member to write to me with the details that she's outlined in the chamber regarding how these issues are dealt with, I will of course ensure she gets a full reply.
Darren Miller.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, one of the failures we've seen in the Welsh NHS over the past 12 months, and certainly within the past 100 days, has been that in the Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board. There was an update from the Deputy Minister for Health and Social Services last week on the progress towards change in that particular health board, but there were two important issues missed from that update. One was any indication as to when the follow-up work post the awful report that was published in respect of the poor care on the Tawel Van unit, and when that second piece of work will commence, the piece of work in which Donna Ockenden is going to be involved. And secondly, there was no update on what has happened since the suspension of the Chief Executive, Trevor Pert. He's now been not doing the job for 100 days and getting paid rather well for sitting at home. When will the public be able to determine what is happening in respect of leadership at that board, and when can we expect to see some progress on the implementation of the second piece of work in respect of Tawel Van?
Well, I can say that as far as the situation of the Chief Executive is concerned, the acting Chief Executive will remain in place for as long as it takes in order to make sure that confidence can be restored in the health board itself. There is no time limit on that. It will take as long as is needed, although he is right to point out then that there needs to be a conclusion with regard to the position of the previous Chief Executive. In terms of the specific question he asks me about when the next stage of the Ockenden process will take place, I will write to him on that and seek to provide him with a date.
Elena Parrott.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, one of the procedures or the systems in the NHS that I believe may be under pressure is the complaints process. I'm currently supporting constituents with 3 different health boards pursuing complaints through the Putting Things Right process, and they complain still that the system is very slow. It drags out their pain, that it in many cases doesn't answer the questions that they've raised when they do get a response, and it's perceived as lacking independence. The Evans Review in July last year did identify an issue that it didn't, that the NHS didn't have the accompanying infrastructure to make this process work. And I'm wondering what progress the Welsh Government has made in making sure that each health board has the infrastructure it needs to deal with complaints and issues in a timely manner.
Well, I believe that health boards are in a position to do that. Certainly, it's the case locally in my area where the complaints process has improved dramatically from where it was a year and a half ago. That much is true. And local health boards should be in a position, as indeed ABMU is, to be able to deal with complaints quickly and in a timely manner. Part of the issue is, of course, that historically health boards have taken the view that where there is a complaint, it must be treated as if it were a precursor to legal action, which is not actually what people want in the main. People just want an apology or an explanation. They don't want money. And that is an approach that is precautionary, as I suppose as an ex-lawyer I understand it. But one of the things that we are looking at is how we can make sure that there is a more informal process where it's not automatically assumed that it must inevitably lead to a court case, which is historically the way that LHBs have tended, in my view, to treat complaints.
Question 5, John Griffiths.
will the First Minister make a statement on the implementation of the Active Travel Wales Act 2013?
Yes, we're continuing to take forward a variety of measures to increase levels of active travel in Wales. We consulted last year on an active travel action plan that sets out key ways in which we intend to support active travel.
First Minister, this legislation will produce a step change in increasing cycling and walking in Wales. Will you agree with me that the sooner we realise those health, environmental and quality of life benefits, the better? And could you tell me what Welsh Government is doing and will do to ensure that local authorities across Wales produce timely and consistently good quality active travel route maps?
Well, we have issued clear statutory delivery guidance to assist local authorities in preparing their existing route maps and later on the integrated network maps as well. We have allocated dedicated funding to each local authority specifically to fund some of their mapping and consultation duties under the Active Travel Act. And we have commissioned an initial survey to cover all designated localities and an all-Wales active travel mapping system that will ensure consistency across Wales, and we've made that available to all local authorities.
William Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Active Travel Wales Act widely welcomed, not just in this chamber but throughout Wales, particularly with emphasis on cycling. First Minister will know that this month is the first cycling's tour of Britain getting underway in Wales. My question particularly is about the Velathon. Last year it could have been better, widely welcomed, a great success in many ways, but some people were seriously inconvenienced. How can we be sure that the next time it happens, that won't happen?
Well, I mean, the member is right. We know that there were difficulties with the Velathon. Lessons had to be learned very quickly by the organisers, and that is something they will need to bear in mind in the future. But he is right to say that the difficulties that were experienced, it was sad that it had to be that way. The difficulties that were experienced at the time took some sheen off the event. It's important they never happen again.
Rhys Iorwerth.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I look forward to seeing the latest maps for active travel being presented to the Minister in January. But does the First Minister agree that we need to push the boundaries in terms of the ambition that we set out in terms of what can be achieved by the Active Travel Act? And does he agree with me on the importance of linking the more populous areas of Anglesey in my constituency with areas of economic activity on the mainland? And in that regard, does he agree that active travel should be considered as part of the arguments for developing a third Menai bridge crossing, because travelling from Llanfair Pwll to Parc Menai is a very long way, because you can't cross the Britannia Bridge, whilst another crossing would be an economic boost for the area?
Well, that would be a very comprehensive way of doing it, I would say, because we have to consider any kind of transport structure. It's important that we think of all kinds of types of transport. May I say that there will be consultation taking place after Christmas, where there will be an opportunity for people to express any concerns to the local authorities if there is an issue or if there are any gaps in the maps themselves. The local authorities will then have to amend the data on the mapping system in order to ensure that to reflect the outcome of the consultation itself. So the consultation will take place and there'll be an opportunity for people to give their opinions and views as regards what kind of mapping system should be used.
Cuthbert.
Diolch, Llywydd. Will the First Minister make a statement on the benefits to Wales of the UK's membership of the European Union?
Well, we know that EU membership benefits Wales in many ways, including through access to structural funds, the CAP and the Rural Development Programme, and through unfettered access to the single market, the world's largest market in GDP terms and our largest trade partner. We know that 150,000 jobs in Wales depend on access to this market.
Thank you, First Minister, for that response. Last week I hosted a reception here on behalf of the National Training Federation for Wales, whose members play a major part in delivering the apprenticeship programmes in Wales. There was overwhelming agreement amongst those present, including employers, that apprenticeships are a hugely worthwhile investment in the labour market and skills. First Minister, the Welsh Government has an excellent track record on apprenticeships, and we are of course able to call upon, in a large part, for funds and assistance from the European structural funds. Would you therefore agree with me that withdrawing from the EU puts successful policies at risk in the future, and that we must do all that we can to avoid losing these crucial benefits, such as the investment in apprenticeship skills and jobs?
Well, absolutely. I mean, for Wales to leave the EU would be economically mad. We know that we are recipients. We receive more money than we contribute, and that money would not be made up by the UK government. Let's face it, it would disappear. We benefit from structural funds. We know I announced yesterday £115 million to aid innovation. Half of the money coming from the private sector, showing a vote of confidence in the scheme itself, and money coming from European funds. It wouldn't happen otherwise. The new campus at Swansea University would not have been built without access to European funding, and there are many other examples across the whole of Wales. We must ensure that the debate about the European Union and our membership of it is driven by economic common sense, not narrow-minded nationalism.
Nick Ramsey.
First Minister, there are clearly a number of competing views on the issue of EU membership. Yours, the trade unions, Jeremy Corbyn. The FSB has found that many small businesses feel in the dark over the pros and cons of membership and want more impartial advice. What discussions have you had with the UK government about best providing this impartial advice so that businesses in Wales can feel confident that they can make the right decision for them?
Well, I see the businesses in Wales are clearly in favour of staying within the European Union. It's the UK government's referendum, not ours, and it's for the UK government to take its view, whatever that might be, at the appropriate time. But my view has always been to lose access to a market of unfettered access to a market of 500 million people, huge market, is crazy. I meet with investors from large countries around the world. I was with one of the Chinese vice premiers on Friday. One of the issues that's always raised is the issue of European Union membership and that access to that large market. The UK is too small a market on its own to be of interest to investors. The interest is in the market of 500 million. To lose access to that market, to have any fetters put on access to that market, will cost jobs in Wales.
Simon Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and may I congratulate the First Minister on convincing Jeremy Corbyn last week of the merits of the arguments, and I am serious in saying that I look forward to campaigning to keep Wales within the European Union alongside the First Minister here in Wales and everyone else from all other parties who wish to see us remaining within that union for the reasons that you have already outlined, First Minister. But the person negotiating any changes that will be the basis of any referendum will be David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Have there been any negotiations between yourself and David Cameron on what he is claiming is happening on behalf of Britain in those negotiations? And is there anything that you, on behalf of the Welsh Government, have asked David Cameron to put forward as part of that negotiation?
I don't believe that he knows himself what he wants. And of course, one of the problems is that the United Kingdom has placed itself in a position where it's friendless within the European Union. And there are some countries that have the same view as regards how quickly a union should take place. But of course, the United Kingdom have a different opinion to Wales or maybe Germany and France. But the problem is that the United Kingdom is now in a position where it has no friends and it's not possible to sustain any support for the UK stance. And the UK has a diplomatic problem. And my view is, and it will always be my view, that it's extremely important that we are members of the European Union. In my view, we benefit from the fact that we are members of the British Union and the European Union, and to lose that membership of the European Union as regards the economic position, we will lose jobs, we will lose structural funds, we will lose funding for farmers, because the Common Agricultural Policy is a policy which has benefited farmers over decades. All of that will be lost. And I don't truly understand those who say that the position would be better if Wales wasn't part of the European Union.
7, David Ellis-Thomas.
Thank you, Dame Presiding Officer. What discussions has the First Minister had with other governments in the UK regarding the impact that recent events in Northern Ireland will have on Wales?
Well, I haven't had any discussions in relation to this, but we know that the situation in Northern Ireland continues to change or to develop, to use diplomatic speak. It remains to be seen what impact this will have on committees such as the Intergovernmental Committee and also the British-Irish Council. Of course, it's not clear what the outcome will be in Northern Ireland, and it's not clear what the impact will be on those bodies.
I'm grateful to the First Minister for drawing attention to the important issues that are affected constitutionally between the nations of Britain and Ireland by what's happening in the north of Ireland. But does the First Minister agree that Wales, with its diverse traditions and experiences, contribute more directly to promoting devolution in the north of Ireland and therefore to democracy across these isles? And will he, as a matter of urgency, take forward his request for a constitutional convention for the UK?
Well, it's something that I've called for some time now, and I've enjoyed your support, of course, for that. But it's evident that the United Kingdom can't continue as it is. We have to have a change of structure in order to secure a future, and I say that purposely, a future for the United Kingdom. Perhaps the situation in Ireland is different to Wales. We all know that, as one who has strong links with Ireland, and we have an understanding of how that works there. It's very different to how things work here, and there's very little opposition there, formal opposition. But what's important is that there's peace there now in Northern Ireland. When I went there, first of all in '92, the army were on the streets, police were armed, there were helicopters in the air throughout all day in Northern Ireland. In order to cross the border, you had to go through a concrete bunker. And of course, the Northern Ireland economy has developed since, and people can see that peace has brought prosperity and a better economic position for the province, if I can call it that. But it is difficult at the moment. I know that the politics of Northern Ireland is always difficult, but we do hope that there will be a way of resolving the situation. It doesn't make any kind of sense to have London running Northern Ireland in the long term. That is not going to be sustainable, and I hope that the Northern Ireland politicians will be able to find a way forward in order to keep the peace in the area, of course.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I appreciate the answer you've given to David Ellis-Thomas about what you can see coming down the line and the potential impacts to ministerial committees in the British and Irish Council. Obviously, the political tensions in Northern Ireland have been some time in the making, as it were, and there's been lockdown in the Stormont Assembly on agreement for the last 6 months at least. Given your assessment of things at the moment, do you think there's been any real impact on the ministerial committees being able to work in a devolved context, and in particular the British and Irish Council, given what's gone on in the last 6 to 8 months, where the political logjam, obviously in Stormont, has prevented any real decision-making taking place there?
No, I haven't noticed it yet. The JMC and the BIC are two very different bodies. The JMC is a body where there is often a full and frank exchange of views amongst those around the table, and it's a way of ensuring that viewpoints are put across. The British-Irish Council, well, the British government doesn't tend to attend it at a high level anyway. Sadly, the Taoiseach of Northern Ireland is always there, which we welcome, of course. I can't recall a Prime Minister attending the time I've been First Minister, certainly outside of London. And that is something that does give me concerns. I think it is important that the Prime Minister of the UK does attend the British-Irish Council in the same way as the Taoiseach of the Republic of Ireland does. But unfortunately, that isn't something that happens. I think it does take away from that body. And I know it's a concern of the smaller jurisdictions, and that isn't happening. But if Northern Ireland are not around the table in a JMC, then that would undoubtedly change the dynamics of the JMC. We have to wait and see how that would work. Thus far, at meetings of the JMC and the BIC, both the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland have been there. They put forward their viewpoints and contributions, and it hasn't affected the workings of those two bodies yet.
Thank you. We now move to the next item.